Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're going to be doing a little bit of an interesting one. I haven't really seen anyone do this, although to be fair, I never really actually checked whatsoever. But today we're going to be talking about ranking all the Wild Rift champions based on how strong they were when they released. So to give you guys an example, let's take Brand. So Brand was completely broken on release, so he's going to be going into the OP tier. Where basically he was so strong that they had to hotfix nerf him, which if you guys know Wild Rift, hotfix nerfing is very rare. And let's think of a champion who was horrible on release. So let's say Callista. If I can actually find her, there we go. So she's at the bottom of the tier list. So yeah, so Callista completely kind of unplayable at this point. Not at this point, but when she was released, like, she was horrible. She had to get buffed on all of her abilities, things like that. So this is kind of what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not talking about how strong the champion is now. I'm talking about at the point where Riot released her, or released whichever champion it was. How strong were they? So for now, I have 4 tiers. So OP, obviously, it's completely broken on release, needs multiple rounds of nerfs. We have good, which is like, it's just good, but it's not OP. Then we have average / below average. I think a lot of champions are going to go into here, which is basically like playable, but either on the weaker side or just okay. It's not amazing, it's not OP. And then we have unplayable, which are champions that are so weak on release they need multiple rounds of buffs. And I'm going to be honest with you guys right at the beginning. I have played the game since the day patch 1.0 was released, so I have been through the release of pretty much every champion, but there are going to be some that I don't really remember, so maybe we might have to add a I don't remember tier at the bottom later on. And of course we have a release champion tier as well. So for example, Ari is a release champion, so we won't be ranking her because when the game came out, I think it came out with about 50 or so champions. That's just a ballpark number, not exact or anything. And also, I'm not gonna count the patch 0.5 or patch 1.0 champions that released. So when I played the game, the moment I downloaded the game, the KDA event was live, and that meant that Lee Sin and all the KDA champions like Kaisa and Seraphine had just gotten released on the Rift. But the day I downloaded the game, they were already in the game. So to me, they are release champions, although technically they are not release champions, but I count the 1.0 champions as release champions. So we're gonna start off with the 2.0 champions, which are basically the Yordles. So if you guys remember, there was a time that they released like Corki, Cannon, Tristana, Teemo, Lulu, that lot all together with the cinematic. So that's gonna be the earliest champions we're gonna be ranking. So anybody else like Akali is gonna go into the release champion tier. And we're gonna go into alphabetical order or whatever order this tier list is in. So I got this tier list just googling Wild Rift on the tier maker website. And yeah, so thanks to whoever it is that uploaded all of these images, so I didn't have to do them myself. So first champion we have is Akshan. Now Akshan came out with the Sentinels of Light event. I don't remember him being OP for sure. I don't remember him being weak, so I'm gonna put him in the average tier. These are going to be release champions, release champion, release champion, release champion. ASOL is technically a release champion as well, but we are going to rank the ASOL rework, which is just average, all things considered. So this was okay, this was okay. Caitlyn, I don't remember her being very good, but I don't remember her being very bad either. As you guys can see, the memory gets a bit foggy after like 3 or so years. Oh, by the way guys, this is not ranked in order, at least for now. But later on we might do some adjustments, but I'm gonna just put them into the 4 broad categories for now, and then we're going to talk about them a little bit later on. So I also can't remember which champions are released and which are not. So to help me out, I actually have the wiki here. So these are all of the champions. So for example, I can't remember if Camille is a release champion. So I can actually just check it out here. So Camille, yep, it was actually a release champion, so I'm not gonna be ranking Camille. As you guys can see, some of them I have literally no memory of. So Caitlyn, I don't really remember if she was good or bad on release, to be very honest. It came out with the Arcane patch, like with Jace and Caitlyn. I don't really remember if she was good, so I'm gonna put her in average for now. But I might really need a I don't remember tier. We'll have to kind of see about that one. Corki was also just okay on release. I remember that one. It came out with, as I said, the Tristana Lulu. stuff. Darius came out with Draven, and I remember he was actually pretty strong on release, and he actually got a number of rounds of nerfs, but I don't think he's quite OP on release. Diana was okay. I do think Draven was really strong on release. I'm not sure if I'm gonna put him in OP, but I do think he's at the high end of good. So we might do a little bit of the shifting around here, as it goes. Now Mundo, is a release champion, but we can talk about the Mundo rework. I think Mundo rework is on the high end of average or the low end of good. It was a pretty solid rework. Echo, I remember, was really strong on release. I think on definitely on the OP side. So these are release champions. Galio was not a release champion. Oh, Galio was completely OP on release, guys. If you guys remember, Galio had a bug on his Q that his Q applied damage twice. So you could build like tank and your Q did double damage, and you built AP and your Q just one-shot people. So Galio was really OP on release, actually. So Galio was really strong. These are release champions. I think Gwen was pretty good on release. I don't remember her being completely OP, but I remember her being pretty strong. But I think the main issue with Gwen was, I remember when she released, most people started taking very early game fights when she's a mid to late game champion, so she definitely was pretty good. Irelia on release. Irelia was not a release champion, was it? Let's have a look and see with the wiki here. Irelia is not even on the wiki, so I'm gonna assume that she is not a release champion. I don't really remember Irelia, to be very honest. So maybe it's just time to add a row, and we're gonna call it I don't remember, because I can't be ranking things that I don't remember. So we're gonna call it I don't remember, and we're gonna go off of that. As you guys can see, I'm doing kind of all of this on the fly. We're gonna chuck Caitlyn in there as well, because I really don't remember how strong Caitlyn was. It's just live, so I'm not sure how long this video is gonna take, but we're gonna talk through it. So these are release champions. Jax, also release champion, but his rework is OP. Low end of OP though, to high end of good. So actually maybe not even low end of OP, but we're gonna just put him there for now. Jace was really strong as well. So I remember Jace was so strong, he was being played mid, jungle, and top because he was really good. Jin was a release champion. Jinx was a release champion. Kaisa is a release champion to me as well. Karma, it was, of course, we know, very OP on release. Of course, I expect the OP tier to be quite big, because I do remember a lot of OP champion releases. I think the average tier is going to be pretty big as well. I think the good and unplayable tier is going to be a lot smaller, because I think that they are a lot less good and unplayable champions. So there is that. So Kassadin, on release, I remember he was really strong. I'm just not quite sure if he is OP. I think he might be on the high end of good. I don't think he was OP, so I'm gonna put him there. Katarina though was really strong on release, but and like people were just spamming, so I think she's like at the low end of OP. I think I will rank the OP in terms of order, something like this. So we will be ranking like the OP part probably. But yes. Oh, Kale was also really OP on release. I remember this one. Kale was so strong on release that she was getting permabanned every single game. She was really good. Kennen as well, also OP on release. Like his ultimate was one-shotting people in team fights, and Kennen was really strong. I think he also got no, he didn't get hotfix nerfs, but he did get nerfs. So we're gonna have to rank. I'm gonna rank Kennen and Kale way higher. Maybe we'll figure out the tier part. We're gonna figure out the tier part later on. Let's toss them into the 4 tiers first, and then we're gonna figure out the order a little bit later on. So Kha'Zix on release I think was pretty good. Lee Sin was a release champion, and by release champion I mean, like, of course, the starting like 50-60 champions that the game started off with. Leona unplayable on release. I remember her E range got increased like 3 times total. She got a myriad of buffs on her Q, W, E, and even her ult. And yeah, she was really weak on release. It was horrible. Lucian pretty good on release, but not OP. Lulu, just average. Technically, Lulu has always been strong since release, so I technically should put her in the good tier, I guess, but no one was really saying Lulu was so good on release. It was really only when people started to realize how good she really was. So technically speaking, she was really good on release, but people didn't realize it. So I guess that's a little bit of a strange one there. So the release champion tier is getting pretty huge. Unfortunately, Morgana came out together with Kale, obviously was completely overshadowed by how strong Kale was. So I'm going to say that Morgana is probably average. Nautilus, average on release as well. He was not really particularly good. Came out around the same time as Pyke, and he was just pretty alright, pretty average. Nunu was also just okay. I don't remember Nunu being particularly weak or strong. Olaf is not Olaf release champion, Ori release champion. Pantheon came out together with the Diana and Leona. In terms of Pantheon, I remember he was actually on the weaker side. But the issue is I only have average and below average or unplayable. He definitely was not unplayable, but I remember he was on the weaker side. Could he be on the low end of unplayable? He's definitely not as bad as these guys. Maybe I should create another tier. Let's add row below and separate the average and below average. So let's come out with the below average here. And let's remove this and put it to average. And then we can toss our Pantheon right in here. And yeah, I guess all of these guys are still pretty average. Nothing amazing, nothing horrible. It's just like, I think we need to differentiate, because Pantheon was not unplayable. Pyke, pretty good on release. Rakan came out together with Xayah. Xayah was definitely pretty bad on release, but Rakan, was he really bad? I think Rakan was okay, so I'm going to put Rakan on average. I think Rammus was a release champion. Renekton came out... Wait, did Renekton come out together with Nasus? Wasn't Nasus a release... Nasus was a release champion, but Renekton came out after Nasus. I remember Renekton was pretty strong. A lot of people were spamming him when he was released. He's always kind of a relatively good top lane champion, so there is that. Rengar came out at the same time as Kha'Zix, and I remember Rengar was not very good on release because Kha'Zix was the way superior one. I think Rengar was actually a little bit below average, so Rengar not quite there. Riven on release was actually pretty good, on the high end of good, definitely. I'm just kind of putting her in the ballpark there, and we'll sort it out later. Now, Samira on release, was she OP? I do think she was really strong, but I'm not sure if she was really that OP. I mean, I could just add a lot more in between tiers to kind of differentiate. Like, for example, like the good champs, like I think like Kassadin, Draven, Darius, Riven are in a tier higher than, like, for example, Gwen and below. So technically you could differentiate them into two tiers, and even within the OP tier, technically the brand up to the Kale is kind of in a tier of its own, and then like Jace to like Jax maybe could be one tier. So I'm not gonna like create 10 different tiers, because you could create like a lot of different tiers of this. I'm just gonna put Samira on the high end of good. Senna came out together with Lucian. I think she's on the high end of average. Seraphine is a release champion, at least to me. Set, I think average. I don't think he was really that good. Shen technically is really underrated. He's technically like, he hasn't really changed very much since release. I guess he's just average for now. Shyvana, I believe, was a release champion. Could be wrong about that one. Next we have Sion. Sion came out around the same time as Samira. And I think Sion was really where you got the hull breaker and the split pushing kind of deal. And I want to put him in good, but I can't quite reach there. So Sion definitely pretty good. On release, Sona was a release champion. Soraka release champion. Teemo, just average, nothing too special. Thresh, honestly, Thresh hasn't really changed all that much. It's really about player skill with Thresh. So you can't really say he's OP on release or anything above like average, because he really took time to learn. A little bit same as Karina. Technically, Karina for the first 1 or 2 patches wasn't that amazing because people took a little bit of time to learn her. But I'm counting release as like the next like couple of patches, like basically kind of around that ballpark. So Thresh, not quite there. We have Tristana. Tristana was unplayable on release in my opinion. She was so weak. And I remember I spammed her when she first released, and I was losing non-stop. Yeah, she was really weak on release. Tryndamere release champion, TF release champion, Varus, Vayne both release champions. Veigar was strong on release, but was he OP? That's the question. He was definitely strong on release, but was he OP? I'm gonna say yes. I think Veigar was OP. I remember that Veigar mid was getting spammed and he was getting banned, I believe. You just stack up and you just start one-shotting people. Veigar was pretty strong when he came out. It's really kind of interesting to note that some of these champions like that were OP, like Veigar or like Echo, were so strong when they came out, but after like a couple of rounds on nerfs, like people just don't play them anymore. So that's pretty sad. Vi was not too good. Was Wukong a release champion? I'm not sure. Let's take a look. So let's find Wukong. Wukong, yeah, patch 1.1. He was not a release champion. He came out after Darius and Draven. Oh yes, I remember this now. I remember him coming out after Darius and Draven. Okay, so Wukong, definitely a pretty strong champion on release. He's definitely at least good. I remember Wukong used to be a very strong jungler, but they kind of nerfed him out of the jungle at some point. Really strong jungler, pretty decent laner. Jungle used to be his kind of best role, so yeah. Xayah, below average, not completely unplayable, but pretty hard to play. She was not strong whatsoever on release. Xin Zhao is a release champion. I keep right-clicking by accident. Release champion. Release champion. Is Ziggs a release champion? Let's see. Ziggs is a release champion. Okay. So Yuumi definitely isn't a release champion. Was Yuumi very strong on release? I would say yes. She was very strong on release, which is why she needed to get nerfed so much. Maybe at the bottom part of OP. I remember the heal being an insane amount and she was really irritating to deal with. Honestly, still is. Oh, Yone is another. Yone was very OP on release, so let's toss him up there. Vex. Was Vex OP on release? Like, she was really strong on release and a lot of people were playing her, but she got nerfed like one round and pretty much no one played her after that one round of nerfs. So I would wager that at this current point right now in Wild Rift, her power level is only a little bit weaker than she was on release, I think, but on release I remember her being but I remember her being OP to a certain extent. So maybe she's at the low end of OP. We'll sort it out later. Warwick, unplayable on release. Kayn, below average. He needed a lot of buffs before he was actually remotely playable. And if you guys remember, blue Kayn was unplayable and red Kayn was like below average. So Kayn was really weak on release. Like, they needed to buff him so many times for him to become meta. Aatrox, was Aatrox good on release? I don't remember him being OP. I think he's probably good at best. Lilia was pretty strong on release, but I don't think she was really OP, so high end of good. Zoe was very strong on release. High end of good as well, I would say. Zeri, OP on release. One of the few ADCs that are actually OP on release. You guys notice that not many ADCs are really OP on release. It's pretty much her, and for her, like, she's the most OP ADC we've ranked so far. Samira is kind of close behind. But we'll sort that out later. Urgot. Urgot's a really interesting one because I feel that Urgot, when he released, he wasn't very popular. They didn't really change him very much. At some point, people started to realize he was good, and then his play rate shot up. But this was like many patches after he released, and then because of that, they nerfed him, and then he got weaker. But technically speaking, they didn't really adjust him much after he first released. So technically, he released in a strong state. But people didn't realize that he was strong. So do I then rank him as good because he technically was good? Or do I then rank him as average because people perceived him as average? So I'm going to go with perception. I'm going to put him in average because, like, people didn't really think he was really that good. Now Twitch, definitely not OP, but I guess good towards the lower side. Because when he released, he did have the AP kind of build, but on ADC he was really not that great. So I would say it's like low end of good to high end of average. Maybe I'm gonna put him on high end of average. It's probably where it's at. Swain, I remember he got nerfed immediately one patch afterwards, but I never really personally thought that Swain was very good at all. So I'm just gonna put him in like somewhere towards the higher end of average, but we'll sort it out later. Ornn I think is really good, but will you really describe Ornn as OP? I kind of would personally, because Ornn, I remember when he released, he did a lot of damage despite the fact he was a tank, and he still does that, by the way. But he really did a lot of damage for the fact that he was a tank, so I do believe he was pretty OP. Volibear, when he released, it was pretty okay. I remember he actually got better as time went on, a little bit like the Urgot situations. I'm gonna put him in average for now. Came out I think around the time of Warwick. Now Neela, the interesting thing about Neela is that honestly since her release, they didn't really adjust her even all that much, and I feel that Neela is just like one of those champions like similar to Urgot and Volibear. It's just really hard to rank because it's just one of those unpopular champions. Like Urgot is really unpopular, and Neela is also very unpopular. And not a lot of people play. Shen as well, also really hard to rank. So they're really unpopular and they're really difficult to rank. Vladimir, OP on release. We all remember Vladimir. He was not released all that long ago. He was really strong on release. Fiddlesticks, also very OP on release. Just one-shotted people all the time. Got nerfed a ton after like one patch, and that was pretty much it for him. Hecarim, I wouldn't describe him as OP on release because people didn't really know how to play Hecarim. I would think he's good on release, although technically his release state is very strong, but people weren't really good at him, so I can't really describe him as OP. Sivir on release was pretty weak, below average, but not unplayable. And Zyra was really strong on release, but is she OP or is she good? I would say probably OP, like she was doing way too much damage. Syndra, honestly, I think even up to this point, people still don't really know how to play Syndra very well. I think that she's honestly really like good, but I think like not OP because people are really not that good at her. Talon, OP on release. He's really strong. Kindred, OP on release as well, but got nerfed immediately one patch later on. Viego, OP on release. Maokai, OP on release. Yeah, you do have a bunch of these guys who are really OP on release. I mean, you just look at this tier list, guys. The spread's actually quite even between OP good and average for now. And below average and unplayable is actually really rare. Obviously, this is... I'm just going to shift them up here so I don't have to keep scrolling up and down. But I think this is kind of because Riot likes to release their champions in a strong state to gain player base, and then they nerf them down after that to then actually balance the champions. That's kind of my logic. Lysandra, good, but I don't think OP. I don't think OP at all. And okay. Milio, I'm not gonna rank, so I'm just gonna put it I don't remember because he just came out. I can't really judge him so fast. Mordekaiser I think is good, but not OP. Okay, so now let's do a little bit of arranging within the tiers and maybe rearrange across the tiers a bit if needed. So OP, let's think about it. So I still think Brand is definitely up there. Galio is up there. Kennen is also up there. These three were very memorable as being very strong. These couple of people are still really strong. Let's look at the later parts of it. I think Vladimir needs to move up quite a ton. Fiddlesticks and as well was really strong on release. Talon was also very strong on release. He was one-shotting everybody. Kindred was also really strong. Was killing people non-stop even though people didn't really even know how to play her. She was just really good. Who else needs to go up? Technically Viego is really OP, but people didn't really know his possession really well, how to use it. Maokai was also really good, but similar to Ornn kind of style. But you realize that tanks are generally not ranked very highly on release because like tanks in general, the only way they can be OP is if they do a lot of damage while tanking a lot. So something like this for now. Let's do a bit more adjustments. Zyra definitely needs to move up a little bit. Jack's definitely towards the lower end. Yone I remember was really strong as well, so I'm having a little bit of a dilemma here. There's way too many OP champions, so I remember personally for me, Yone is one of the worst champion releases because I remember for like a few months I was dying to Yone on repeat and I couldn't play against Yone personally, so I was perma-banning him for months. And then when I kind of stopped banning him because he got nerfed so many times, I still couldn't deal with him because I just hadn't played against him for months. So that's a little bit of personal bias, but I think objectively speaking, he was actually pretty strong on release, but maybe not as strong as these guys. Definitely Brand, Galio, and Kennen are up there. Fiddlesticks is up there as well. Vladimir is also definitely up there, but I think I move him down a little bit, so maybe a little bit more like this. And Kale and Jace were really good as well. I think Kale needs to move up a tad. Karma was really good as well. Yoni was really good. Jace needs to move down a little bit, I think, because I think these champions are a little bit better than him. Something like this. Katarina was also really strong. And Zeri goes up a little bit here. Ornn goes up a little bit here. And yeah, I think I'm kind of happy with this. I think the OP tier, something like this, roughly from the best to the worst is Brand to Jax. Jax rework, that is. So something like this. The main reason why the way I rank this is, for example, against a Jax, you generally don't feel okay, maybe if you're the top laner you might, but I think like with Jax you don't feel completely oppressed and you don't feel like you can do nothing. But with someone like Brand, for example, you walk anywhere near him, he one-shots like 3 people at the same time and you literally cannot play the game. Same thing with Cannon. You walk up anywhere close to him, he one-shots like 5 people at the same time. Gallo, you can't even walk anywhere near him because he just hits you with a Q and you lose more than half your health. It's unplayable. Right? So I think these 3 are kind of the most OP champions you could find on release. And then like you get to like all of the really, really strong champions up to like somewhere around Zyra or Jace. And then these are all really good as well, but I think that there are kind of like 3 tiers within the OP tier, so something like this. Let's see, with the good tier, we have, yeah, Syndra is pretty good, Samira is pretty good, so is this, so are these peoples. Honestly, the good tier looks pretty solid for now. Yeah, something like this. We can move this guy up a little bit. Mordekaiser pretty solid. I mean, honestly, the whole good tier is just, they're all really similar. They're all like not really OP, but they're good. I would say that maybe the few champions that could be somewhere between good and OP are like Syndra, Samira, Kassadin, Zoe, Draven, and Darius. So these are somewhere on the higher end of good to low end of OP. And then the rest, like Hecarim all the way through to Aatrox, I think they're all just like about the same. They're all just pretty good. Now let's take a look at average. Average, you definitely have a high and low end of average. So as I said, Twitch, Senna, Mundo, and Swain definitely are on the little bit high end of average. The rest of them, let's take a look. See, I think the rest of them are all really kind of similar. They're all just kind of average. Like I said, you know, champions like Urgot and Neela are really difficult to rank because their play rate is just really low all throughout. So for below average, let's see. So how are we ranking below average though? Like, is the lower end the worst or is the high end the worst? I guess we should put the low end the worst, right? So the high end should be like the best. So like maybe let's try to shift things around. Definitely Rengar is the best out of these. Like, he was the most playable out of these champions. I think Sivir was not too bad. Pantheon was not too bad. Xayah and Kayn was definitely on the lower end. So Xayah like this, Kayn like this. And then we have unplayable. Like, how bad were these champions? Who is the worst? Who is the worst on release? Like, Tristana got so many buffs so many times. So did Leona. These two are horrible. Kalista was so unplayable, but she got 1 round of huge buffs. And Warwick, I would argue, currently is not unplayable, but it's kind of like the worst champion currently. So release Warwick was pretty horrible. Maybe it's like this. So maybe it's Kalista. But Kalista on release was also really bad. That's the thing. I mean, honestly, all these 4 champions are the same. Like, I think these 4 champions are the kind of champions that on release, if you pick them, you are trolling. And of course, I did that a lot with Kalista, especially because I was just spamming her because I was thinking like, it's a skill issue. Like, I'm not good at Kalista. It's not that she's weak, but she really was weak. Like, Kalista was horrible. So I think it's something like this, and the rest are release champions. I'm not gonna rank Milio because he's too new, and I honestly can't remember Irelia and Caitlyn. So we're gonna leave it at that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, a little bit of a more strange kind of video format where I rank all of these champions release, the strength of them when they are released live, not live, but you know, just on the fly, non-scripted, you know, things like that. So thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.